Coming up after the top of the hour. No, not coming up after the top of the hour now. Put your headphones on. You have any headphones? That's all right. You don't need headphones. You can hear me. Pop the mic up here. We have a very special guest in studio. He was in with us a couple of weeks ago, and he's back now. Kevin Brookman from the We the People Hartford blog. That's wethepeoplehartford.blogspot.com or just wethepeoplehartford.com. He is tuned in to everything Hartford that you need to know. He's as sourced as they come. There are lots of good television and newspaper reporters that are sourced. This guy, as a blogger, is very, very connected to the Hartford community. Interested to hear, Kevin, your take on how things are going to shake out with Luke Bronin as the new mayor here in Hartford.
Very optimistic. I think it's time we need some solid leadership in Hartford. We haven't gotten it with the last couple mayors or council. So I'm hoping that Luke brings some leadership to the mayor's office. You know, I think he's in a honeymoon period now. We'll see quickly what's going to happen, but I hope he hits the ground running and starts bringing about some serious change to the city and some leadership.
I know. I think he and his wife have lived in Hartford for 7 or 8 years now. But some people on the outside, they say, "What's a guy from Greenwich doing wanting to be the mayor of Hartford?"
I don't care if he moved here from China. If he's suitable to lead our city and take us out of the hole we're in now, he's got my vote. And I think we need to all keep an open mind at this time and give him a chance to do what he needs to do. I've got a public access program, and he was my guest Monday. We talked for an hour. And, you know, coming from the Malloy administration, he knows leadership is not popular. Governor Malloy's ratings are probably some of the lowest they've ever been, but he's also making tough decisions that need to be made.
You know, the unfunded pensions, cutting jobs, state jobs.
Everything, all the things that have been let go for years and now are coming home to roost. And I think that's the position Luke is in. You know, we can't sell any more assets off because we don't have any more assets. We don't have any more parking garages. We can't do the things that the previous administration has done. And it's time for some tough love for the city of Hartford now. And if that means in 4 years he's not popular, well, that's the way politics goes. But I think, you know, if he does what he needs to do, people are going to look back in several years from now and say, he was the guy we needed. He did what he needed to do to put the city on the right track. Him and his wife, his wife is a very scholarly person. She's run the Planning and Zoning Commission for 1.5 years, 2 years now. And I don't think you can base their love of the city of Hartford on how long they've lived here. You know, our previous mayor just claimed he lived here 40 years, which turned out not to be true. But, you know, if he's the right guy and he can do what needs to be done, let him go.
Oh, you got the baseball stadium coming in. You got the UConn Hartford campus coming in. You got more apartments popping up. What is the biggest need as a Hartford resident yourself, Kevin? The first thing he must address and get a grip on is what?
The biggest thing is taxes. You know, it's hard to. You know, the number one thing that's going to turn Hartford around and it really affects our crime rates are jobs. And the number one thing we need to do to get jobs in Hartford is to attract businesses where they can come here and make money. That's the number one reason for being in business. And you can't make it when you're paying almost 80 mils or 78 mils on all your taxes.
Which is now going to be capped in the high 30s, isn't it?
On motor vehicle.
Oh, that's right.
Property taxes. See, every business in Hartford has to pay personal property taxes on every telephone, every computer, every desk, every chair.
That's right. There's
taxes on all that at 78 mils.
All right, we're going to talk more with Kevin Brookman. Again, check out his blog, We the People Hartford. He'll update it oftentimes many times a day if there is a hot topic, and I'm sure there are hot topics related to the police department, the city hall, the fire department. We'll talk more with Kevin. We're happy to continue our conversation with Kevin Brookman from the We the People Hartford blog. He blogs about everything that's happening in and around the capital city. He is very much the watchdog that you want to, and I'm not insinuating he looks like a dog, all right? Stop. I can hear your thoughts. I can read your mind. No. He is someone who's on top of everything in the city, and he will call people out. And Kevin, one thing you mentioned during the break, people have been tough on you this week because of your early interaction with Luke Bronin. Why?
A lot of people claimed I interviewed him Monday for my public access program, and people claimed I wasn't hard enough on him because I didn't go after campaign contributions he got from contractors and things like that. That's politics. Nothing illegal was done, and until he violates my trust and shows that he's taking it for a payback or whatever, then I think that's politics. Until we reform our campaign finance laws more severely, he's allowed to do it. And I think at some point we have to have trust in our elected officials that they're not all corrupt, that they can make rational decisions and do the right thing. And I'm keeping an open mind with Luke and even his wife's involvement, through city government, that they're doing it for the right reasons. And I have confidence that they're going to, move Hartford forward with their decision making.
Now, Governor Malloy has said that he will not seek re-election again at the end of this term. I'm just saying. He worked for the Malloy administration. This could be a stepping stone for Luke Bronin if he proves himself.
There's a big difference, I think, between running for local politics and making a transition to statewide or national politics. I think if Luke can prove himself, the sky's the limit for him. He's a young guy. He's intelligent, well-spoken.
Rhodes Scholar, right?
Yeah. So the sky's the limit for him as to where he wants to go. But I think he's got to prove himself as a leader in the city of Hartford.
Sure.
And that's a tough spot because if you look back at Hartford history, no mayor has risen up the ladder in recent history to either statewide or national office. So a lot of times with the way Hartford is and the way it's been run, it's a killer for you.
That's true.
You're not going to come in and be popular. You're not going to come in and say, geez, Hartford is thriving. We have no deficit. Our budget is flush. That's a very tough spot. And those are the things people look at when you want to move up to a higher office. So I'm hoping, maybe not 4 years, but 8, 12 years from now, that Luke has turned the city of Hartford around so much that he's being looked at for positions like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what everybody aspires to. Nobody wants to say, I want to stay here for the next 20 years. We all have ambitions. We all want to move up. And I'm hoping that works out for Luke. And I would like to see that happen in Hartford because he's made Hartford a much better place.
Speaking with Kevin Brookman from We the People Hartford blog. That's wethepeoplehartford.blogspot.com or wethepeoplehartford.com. You can read his blog about everything Hartford. Now, with regard to Luke again, Kevin, obviously he's got to put his administration in place. He's told you that he's not going to announce each position one at a time. He's going to do it all at once. Well, there have been a lot of scrutiny, especially with the fire department. What's going to happen there?
I can't pretend to speak for Luke or know what he's planning on doing. We're not that close, but I think anybody that's looked at the operations of the fire department realizes there needs to be an immediate change there. Unfortunately, no change will happen until after January when the new administration takes place.
So you think Huertas will be out? The chief?
I hope so. When you look at all the scandals and all the things that have happened there's been no leadership in that department for several years.
And explain because we have listeners throughout Connecticut, not just in the greater Hartford area, but in Meriden, Waterbury, Torrington. Just hit on a couple of the real serious issues with the Hartford Fire Department. I mean, of course, the death of the firefighter just over a year ago.
Yeah, and we're still waiting to get the state report to see what was really behind that story. But a couple of things is the lack of discipline amongst the members of the department. The number of DUI arrests, gun charges, shootings that have been committed by firefighters, all the things that have gone on, just there's a total air of anything goes. And that's I think that's a tone that's set from the top. And, even we've got high-ranking firefighters that are fist fighting at fire scenes. Now, who in the right mind would think that's acceptable if you know that there's going to be severe penalties if you are brought up on charges? But I think they know that, a blind eye is turned toward most of it. We just had an incident, a couple months ago where a lieutenant jumped off a fire truck and ran and basically was aggressive and used foul language. And by some accounts, he punched a captain that was at the scene. And now the decision came down this week. The lieutenant, who was clearly the aggressor by all the reports and all the statements given, he was the aggressor. He jumped off, ran, and aggressively went up to the captain. He only got a 2-week suspension. The captain that he allegedly punched got 3 months off. Now, where's the fairness there? And these are the type of decision-making that's going on in the Hartford Fire Department that will cost us big money down the road. When these things go to the labor board or go before a Superior Court judge, just look at what's been done to Dan Nolan over the years.
Explain who Dan Nolan is and his involvement in the fire department.
Dan Nolan is a deputy chief, and as we talked before, he's a lightning rod because he stands for what he believes in. He does what's right or what he thinks is right, and it's not really accepted. He had, when he was the deputy chief of training at the fire academy several years ago, he got recruits coming in to be involved in charitable organizations, and they have what they call the towers. There's a big fire tower behind the training academy. And as a discipline and as a teamwork, the recruits are required to do so many towers, run up and down the stairs in the tower, and that supposedly builds teamwork and camaraderie. So he would give them a credit. If you were involved in a nonprofit and did so much work, almost like community service type thing, he would give you credits toward your towers. You wouldn't have to run as much. He also was washing out some politically connected people from the academy who, you can't dump people in the police department because of state requirements for all the things you have to meet. But you can dump people in the fire department because as long as you get hired and make it through the academy, you're certified as a firefighter. So politically, a lot of people were dumped in the fire department. We're paying for that over the years now, but people were dumped in the fire department. Dan had several that just were not capable of being firefighters, so he flunked them out of the academy. Well, that didn't go over well with the politicians, so they devised a plan that he was using his position for his own personal gain by making these recruits be involved in charities. So they terminated them. Eventually, the labor board overturned all that, required all of his back pay and benefits, and I don't know what the settlement was, but it was a large amount of money, and he got his job back. Now he's back at the fire department now, and they're still giving him grief every day. Very knowledgeable. He served a couple tours, I think, in Iran or Iraq and Afghanistan in the military. His family has a long tradition with the Hartford Fire Department. So, if I was looking at somebody from within to become chief, I would definitely give him a shot because I think, he may not be the most popular guy there, but what leader is going to be popular when you come in and you start changing things? So he's been around for a while, and it's just the type of thing where he's an outcast because I don't want to say he's not a team player because I think he could be under the right circumstances, but he's not a game player. He's not going to do something just to move up the ladder. He's going to do what he believes in. And I've known Dan Nolan most of my life. He's a Windsor kid. I am. Neville Brooks, who's a deputy chief on the police department. We all went to schools together and things like that. So, Dan Nolan is a friend of mine. I don't deny that. But he's also, very capable in what he does. So.
Talking with Kevin Brookman from We the People Hartford blog. Call from Gene in Hartford. Gene, Kevin doesn't have headphones this morning. They got repossessed when he didn't pay his car taxes. So you can just ask me the question and I'll ask it to Kevin.
All right. Well, like I always say, there's so much fraud, abuse, waste, corruption in the state. I mean, look at Joe Gannon was a reelected mayor, but what can anyone do? What can Kevin, as We the People, do to oversee this, to possibly stop this from happening, and is the governor being held accountable for these actions?
Thank you, Jean. Is the governor being held accountable? She asks. She referenced Joe Ganim. The politicians need to have their feet held to the fire. Do you have regular contact with politicians in the city, with the city leaders, and how do you not? I know newspaper reporters are very good. They're very good at asking the questions that need to be asked. I find television reporters dance around things a little bit more. Did you sort of have to develop that sort of trait, or not really?
The politicians are important because they have a lot of the first contact with things that are going on. If there's a problem, they tend to know about it before the general public does. A lot of my contact with council people at City Hall is by them calling me. I really don't.
You don't reach out to them; they come to you.
I have a few that I do. If a question comes up, I have a couple that I can call that I trust, and they will give me a lot of it off the record, but will give me accurate information. Excuse me.
No worries.
But yeah, a lot of politicians will use you when they want to get a message out and make sure they call you and say, "Hey, this is going on, that's going on," and other times they won't answer a question. So it's you have to learn who you can trust and who's giving you accurate information, and everybody has an agenda. And I think you have to filter through a lot of that, of whose agenda you're meeting by putting information out there.
We're going to take a quick time out. More calls for Kevin Brookman, the author of, the curator of, the purveyor of We the People Hartford. It's a great blog. You can find it wethepeoplehartford.com or wethepeoplehartford.blogspot.com. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we're going to talk about yesterday's casino RFP deadline and how Hartford sort of slid in the back door. Stay close. All right, welcome back to the Talk of Connecticut and Terzi Talk. My name is Tony Terzi from Fox 61 News. I almost said Fox Connecticut again. But just for those of you who aren't familiar with me, consider yourself lucky. I work out of the New Haven Bureau of Fox 61 News. Fox 61, of course, based in the Hartford Current building on Broad Street in Hartford, and we have a New Haven Bureau. And so that's where I work out of, Monday through Friday, primarily covering stories along the shoreline. Kevin, speaking of stories, I had to, I've covered many times the story of Joe Ganim's comeback. And have you ever heard in your existence here in northern Connecticut, in the city of Hartford, has there been a story that parallels the comeback of Joe Ganim that's been more bizarre or as bizarre?
Not that I'm aware of. It's just sometimes you have to say, what are voters thinking?
They love him down there.
I don't know what it is.
People tell me we can identify with him because our city, there are a lot of ex-cons, and we can identify with him, and they see that he's gotten a second chance, and he's rebounded, so it gives them hope. That's what they say.
Well, then John Rowland must be getting ready to organize his comeback campaign.
I saw John Rowland at a golf course. I won't mention where, but I saw him at a golf course within the last month, and he looked happy. He had just finished playing a round of golf, and Bob Fiandella was there, too. Bob used to head the Phoenix Company, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And both, they've both been nice to me. But, I'm not quite sure. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall or a bug in the phone for the conversation between Governor Malloy and Joe Ganim this week.
There may already be bugs in the phone. Who knows?
Well, that's true. That's true. Let's get back to Hartford for a second. The casino. Yesterday was the deadline that was imposed by the Mashantucket Pequots and the Mohegans. They're trying to build a casino in a northern Connecticut community to compete with the $800 million behemoth that is underway up in Springfield. Hartford, kind of unexpected, slid in an application, one of Pedro Segarra's final duties as mayor.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything on the proposal. It was just so quick to come out yesterday. I don't know if they're planning on putting the casino where Dillon Stadium was supposed to go, because that land will be free now. But I don't know. Mixed emotions on that. Will it bring jobs? Yes. Will it bring people to Hartford? I'm sure it will. Is it the right thing for Hartford? I don't know. I don't know how we pick and choose what we get. I think an outlet mall would have made a lot more sense where the Yard Goat Stadium is going. Nobody is going to be putting kids through college with the money they're making working in concession stands at the Yard Goat Stadium. I think they could be putting kids through college with decent careers in retail and management. So I'm not sure. Again, but taxes are the big killer on that. You know, if the outlet mall goes to East Hartford, they're paying, I think, 30-some-odd mils on the property and on the businesses. Coming to Hartford, they're going to pay almost 80 mils. So until we get that in line, economic development in Hartford is going to be a very difficult issue, unless we give everything away to attract people here, in which case we make no money on the grand list. Hartford really needs to get their house in order. I'm not sure a casino is going to do it. And to be honest, this mayor and this administration don't have the best track record for bringing economic development to Hartford. You know, many people are questioning what the Yard Goats really are going to benefit. It's going to cost us probably close to $4.5 million a year for the next 20 years in the debt service on that whole property or that project. So if we're going to really talk about economic development, it needs to be serious, and we need to see the benefits to Hartford, not just the glitz and glamour of saying we've got a casino, but how is that going to benefit me and the other 124,000 residents of the city of Hartford? Is it going to bring our insurance rates down? Is it going to bring our motor vehicle taxes down? The legislature's already done a big part of that starting next year. But, economic development has to make sense for Hartford, not just something we throw on the table at the last minute. There's been no public discussion, no public hearings. So the public has had no input on what they want either. And I know several years ago when Steve Wynn was trying to bring a casino to Hartford, a lot of the religious community in Hartford said that, they were against it because it would increase crime. Well, I don't know how much more we could increase our crime than what it's at now. And I think a casino would actually be a benefit in some ways to the city of Hartford. But time will tell. But the other issue I have is, I know that yesterday was a deadline to get the proposals in. But there's so much that's being done right now as last-minute gestures by the mayor and the council. And I think out of respect for the incoming administration, all this stuff should be put on hold until after January 1st when the new administration starts, and let them be weighing in on what's right and what's wrong.
It's interesting you say that, because yesterday Joe Ganim held a press conference for the first time since he won on Tuesday, and he gave the members of the media a copy of the letter that he issued to outgoing Mayor Bill Finch, asking him to refrain from doing just what you were talking about without consulting the new administration. Yeah. Refrain from hiring, any major investments, things along those lines.
Well, if you look at the council agenda from Monday night's meeting, there's so many things that, time isn't of the essence. So there's no reason to slam these things through. Let's hold off and let the new administration consider it. And they're going to have to live with it for the next 4 years. So it should be their responsibility, not a lame duck mayor and a council that's going out in a month and a half. So I think that's just a matter of respect.
Before we let you go, Kev, what have you got working on without giving away the whole story? What are you working on right now?
There's a few things. Some of it has in relation to the Yard Goat Stadium and money that's being spent there, but most of the things I post on my blog come in within a day or two. It's just things that, I get the phone call, I look into them, verify them, and then it goes up on the blog in some ways to draw attention before they get too far down the road, to let people know that, okay, we're looking, we're watching, don't do something stupid. So it's always, things are in the hopper. I'm getting phone calls every day about different things going on. So it keeps me somewhat busy.
So that's Kevin Brookman from the We the People Hartford blog. You can find him online. That's Kevin, it's at wethepeoplehartford.com or wethepeoplehartford.blogspot.com.